everybody. Hope you guys are all freshened up after the break. What if I told you that there are more than 3 million Europeans use the AI that we built in Sri Lanka every week? And 10 years before, I was on the other side. I was sitting, just like many of you, listening to the speakers, trying to see how we can build a global tech company. So today I'm going to tell you the story of how Rootcode, as a Sri Lankan startup, became a big European AI partner for enterprises and governments alike. In the process of building Rootcode as a global technology and AI company, I've learned so many lessons. And when I try to structure it in a way that makes sense to an audience like you, I broke it down into 4 major learnings that I had. The first learning that I had in building Rootcode to where it is today is the timing. We started in 2014, and I was a college student. I was studying software engineering, and when I started my 4th year, I also started a little startup. And we took up a really interesting challenge. We were fascinated by AI before it became easy to build AI, or before everybody started accepting AI is the way to go. In fact, people used to ask us, like, why AI? Focus on web development. There's so much money in web development. There are a lot of companies doing web development. We picked a really big problem. For some crazy reason, we started to build, the first app that we built was an AI music app. We wanted to build an AI that can understand on what pitch humans are singing. And it can guide you to sing better. And you can compete with each other on who sings better. Stupid idea, right? But yeah, as a startup founder, sometimes your idea is the coolest in the world. We built it. I as a founder and a technology kind of a developer, I was super fascinated by the technical problem that we are solving. How do you make an AI understand a human voice? Back in 2014. Built an app. It got famous. People liked it. It didn't make a lot of money. It didn't make enough money to run the business. That's a separate story. But one thing that prepared us for the last few years was the jump start of doing AI before everybody was doing AI. So we ended up mastering some of the basic fundamentals of making machine learning and deep learning models work, because you didn't have frameworks to build on top. We had to build from scratch. Most of the AI predictions were more of numbers and statistics for us. And that ability and that timing of learning and being able to do AI, even before AI became a very common thing, prepared us for a big battle that came in 2020 and afterwards. So we were preparing for a wave that hadn't hit yet for the first 5 years. That's also why you may not have heard about us much in the first 5 years. So my first big learning is timing is everything. So prepare for the next big challenge, because when the timing happens, you better be ready. The second biggest learning is, how many of you have heard this sentence? Chaos is a ladder. It's from a very old Game of Thrones. Chaos generally breaks us. It's supposed to break us. But if used correctly, chaos can be a ladder. And that happened to us in 2020. If you are not too young, you may remember how bad COVID-19 was. In the early stages of 2020, all of a sudden, the world stopped. We were all locked down. Businesses stopped. We did not know how to run the business. We did not know how to feed our employees. And our customers didn't know what to do with their airline business or retail business or taxi business, because unpredictable, everything is stopped. We were affected too. But for today's session, I want to focus on one of the biggest lessons in chaos and crisis. When we lost a big part of our usual business, we started pivoting into doing a lot of different things. One of them was participating in a huge global hackathon. So we participated in the global hack organized by the European Commission, along with 12,000 different teams. And as you know, Sri Lankan developers work extremely hard day and night. Over 72 hours, we built a product for a solution created by this pandemic. So we built something called Expert Republic, which is a video consultation app where you can do business even if you are locked down. And that 72 hours made us the winner globally. And trying to do this, as painful as it was, put us in front of the European businesses and enterprises, and later we got to know in front of governments as well. And the crisis of COVID was acutely painful in short term, but ended up becoming a blessing in long term. Because COVID taught all the businesses that there is no way for you to survive as a business or as a country, as a society without technology. And the world needed more of technology. And that's where Rootcode capitalized. So if you notice our growth, from 2020 to 2022, we grew from like 25 people to 100 people. And that was my biggest learning, number two, that chaos can be a ladder. In that process of expanding globally, we also started touching places that we never thought were possible. I also learned there are countries in the world that could respect Sri Lankan technology. I learned that as a little Sri Lankan company, we can go as far away as Iceland and sell our technology and AI. So your worst moment as a startup or as an entrepreneur can also be your launching pad. That's my second lesson. My third lesson, and this was a big lesson because we spent the first half of our existence, the first 5 years, building technology for many startups globally. And what startups want and what our ideal market wanted was something completely different. We were so good at building somebody's dream, but we were not ready to build an enterprise level technology or something that a country can rely on running their whole citizens. And the biggest learning that we had as a young technology startup from Sri Lanka is that trust is the biggest thing that you need to build. And to build trust, you need to have three major things. You need to be reliable as an organization. You need to think about security because the cost of failure is so extremely high. And you need to have reliability in terms of delivery so that enterprises which are doing hundreds of millions of dollar transactions can rely on your technology. And if you have reliability, security, and delivery, then countries will start to trust you, which is something we later understood. In our growth into Europe, we ended up being chosen by really big European organizations like Kendrion, which has existed for more than 112, 113 years now. And they build a lot of sensors and parts for many of the automobiles like Volkswagen to Audi and Mercedes. They ended up choosing us to build their core AI technology. And then organizations like BRP, who joined us in the transformational stage in 2020, when they had a big sustainable business for 15 years, but they couldn't understand how to break into the new generation of mobile apps and AI. And they came to us, and we built a technology together with them, and we still do. It's going to be five years now. And in that process, BRP went from number 3 to number 1 in the Nordics. So you can flip a coin and go to any of the gyms in the Nordics, and you will be guaranteed that you'll be using our technology that we built proudly in Sri Lanka. And then we had a big dream. The dream was, can we build AI that are used by governments in Europe? And then I used to think we were crazy thinking like that. We spent many years sitting down and applying for public tenders in Europe. And then we gave up by the 25th time. If you have spoken to me about public tenders, you would know that it was a soul-crunching experience of failing for 25 consecutive times when every tender took you 500, 600 pages to write. But we knew that it would be a business-defining moment if we can build AI and technology that's built in Sri Lanka, but built for governments in Europe. So we were hustling, we didn't want to give up. And the 26th tender was the first tender we ever won in the European Union, and that is with the government of Estonia. There are multiple reasons why we won this tender. Because if you are not a pre-existing government contractor, nobody really cares about you. And you are competing with some of the world's biggest giants. And our competition had on average 10,000, 20,000 employees. And we had like barely 100 people. Estonia's conversation layer infrastructure was powered by an open source framework called RASA, if you are into open source conversational AI frameworks. And Rootcode is a contributor to RASA. We have been one of the power users of the most prominent conversational AI platform. And we also saw a lot of gaps we ended up contributing to. That was one reason. So when a country chooses a technology and AI provider, they also look at what you have done. So that gave us credibility. And I've told this before in other forums, if you want to really target and become a government contractor in an open ecosystem like Europe, anybody can go see any tenders. There's nothing that's private in the government world in Europe. You can see what projects that we won, you can see what projects our competitor won, you can see why they won, you can see how much everybody quoted. It is a transparent world out there in Europe. We prepared us to be transparent and to win the committee's approval. So we spent a lot of time creating case studies and positioning not only Rootcode, but Sri Lanka as a capable technology and AI provider for the world. And that was one of the core reasons why we won this. And then, so this was the 26th tender that we applied. And we won. And then last year, we applied for 3 government tenders in Europe, and we won all 3 of them. One of the interesting contracts that we do with a European country, Portugal, is we are building an amazing hardware, software, and AI platform together in Sri Lanka to help the farmers in Portugal. So one of the problems that they had was how do you bring in advanced AI intelligence to an industry as primitive as farming, but needed for humans to survive? Like imagine if all the farmers stopped working, where do we go? But as technology creators, we don't often think about that, do we? So we built a hardware, and this was super funny because at Rootcode, we have never built a hardware. And people ask me, so did you hire hardware engineers? No. Software engineers became hardware engineers. My fellow ML engineers started to solder new chipsets and design chips, because anything in innovation is possible as long as you sit down and know how to learn. And that's what we did. So that device that you see is the first version of prototype. Now it looks a lot smaller and much better. And this is something that we built in Sri Lanka, where we used an off-the-shelf sensor, which reads 7 different values from the soil. From the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium values, the soil temperature, humidity, and also pH level. And we feed that into our little computer that we built in Sri Lanka and designed in Sri Lanka and assembled in Sri Lanka. And then everything gets passed into our mobile app, where farmers can also take pictures of the plants. And then we built an AI model that understands all of these values and takes a judgment on whether these plants can survive, or whether you need to take an intervention to make those plants live more. And this became a big lifeline. And to date, we and Sri Lanka are celebrated in Portugal for creating something like this. Then the third defining contract in Europe was we were selected to build the citizen engagement platform for Prague. And if you know Prague, the capital of Czech Republic, is one of the most advanced cities in Europe in terms of digital nature. And we built an end-to-end citizen engagement platform where users and citizens can report issues, and everything gets directed to the right audience, the right department, and solutions are passed back and forth to the citizens, to the officers. And this was another place where we managed to make Europe look at how beautiful and how great the technology built in Sri Lanka is. So the third biggest lesson that we have is building trust helped us go from serving smaller startups to serving some of the most advanced digital nations in the world. So if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a startup, please focus on building trust. And that should be one of your primary priorities. The fourth big advantage, which I came to learn in the process of building Rootcode, is the Sri Lankan advantage. Sometimes when we are in Sri Lanka and when we are from Sri Lanka, we think it's a disadvantage coming from a developing country. We think it's a disadvantage growing up and trying to build a business from a very small ecosystem, right? And you might even get disappointed when you go out and try to say, I'm from Sri Lanka, and then some people may ask, where is Sri Lanka? Or people look at you and say, are you Indian? But I learned in the last 10.5 years that there is a Sri Lankan advantage. There are a lot of things that are wrong in our country, yes. But there are a few things that we have gotten absolutely right. For some reason, we managed to build world-class engineers from Sri Lanka. I wouldn't have been able to build a company like Rootcode if not Sri Lanka has produced this many great engineers. And I think it has something to do with, despite all the flaws, the beauty of our free education nature that we have. And I don't come from a rich family. I grew up in a tiny part of the country, and my parents were teachers. Just because I was able to go to a public school to study for free, I managed to learn. And I think that free education has a lot to do with the ability of Sri Lanka to compete in the global space. And Sri Lankans, compared to any other country in the world, can work hard if they believe in something. And this is something I learned only after I spent a lot of time globally and started competing with engineers from Silicon Valley, engineers from Europe, and to see that the work ethics of Sri Lankans is super special and celebrated. Our top customers to date stay with us and keep telling we really love working with Rootcode and Sri Lanka, primarily because of the work ethics you have. No problem goes unseen. If your customer is in trouble, we are in trouble. That's the Sri Lankan nature. And that I call the fourth main pillar and the learning of making a company globally successful is the Sri Lankan advantage. So, can a small team, we are small on a global scale. We might be medium in Sri Lanka with 120 people, but we are so small in a global scale. We are competing with companies that have 25,000, 30,000 employees. So can a small team outperform global tech giants? And we did. Can Sri Lankan technology power European governments? You have an answer. We have 3 European governments and counting. And can you build a global enterprise from a small, tiny island, even without any support, even without no investors? Can you do that? We showed it's possible. And now it's your turn. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to start answering the questions. If you have, so I timed my presentation 30 minutes into 20 minutes and 10-minute Q&A. And I've completed sharp at 20 minutes. So the next 10 minutes is for you. If you have any questions, please shoot it on the platform. I hope everybody knows where you ask the questions. So the first question that's ranked here is, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? Where should I start if I want to start my own startup? That's a tough one. Usually, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you will know it. You will have the sort of the fire that's waking you up every day. I want to build something. So listen to that, like if you have the fire, right? And what does it take to be an entrepreneur? I don't know, but if you look at most of the entrepreneur journeys, there are a few things that are constant. One of them is the journey is not going to be easy. And I think all the entrepreneurs here would vouch for that. Because if it is easy, everybody would do it. It's a miserable process of trying to build something. If you want to be happy, just go work for a good employer. Don't start a company. But if you have that drive and if you want to make a difference and if you want to follow that itch that you have inside and hope that you may build something, because you may not build as well, right? I mean, we talk about probably like 1%, 2% of examples of people who have built successful companies and made them survive. But you may not build as well. But if you like the odds, and if you still want to get up and drive and hustle to make that 1% chance work, then become an entrepreneur. On the other side, sometimes you may get inspired by seeing problems that can be solved. Then become an entrepreneur if you have a solution for a product or a problem that the world or your community is facing. So yeah, I will structure it in either one of them. All right, next question. Continuing to keep on trying after 25 failures often means you have a lot of confidence in your work. No, absolutely no. How did you manage to build such a high confidence that your product will succeed one day? No, it's not a game of confidence, guys. After you build a reasonable organization or a team, you usually know that you can build anything, right? You will have that confidence. If you have great technical people around you, and if you think from first principle, you know that any complex problem in the world is solvable. But that doesn't necessarily give you the confidence to make your product successful or make a country or a big enterprise select you for a contract. It is rather a probabilistic game. And a lot of entrepreneurs may not tell you this. People may make it sound like it's deterministic. We were born to win. That's not the case. It's very probabilistic. But you can do a lot of things to maximize your chances. So in a game of probability, first of all, you need to clear the bar. You need to be one of the best teams. You need to have one of the best technology and products. Then everything else is very probabilistic. So work hard to increase your chances. The reason we didn't give up, even after 25, was we know that we didn't come this far just to pack our bags and go home. And we also know that we have nothing to lose. And we keep reinvesting all our profits back into a lot of risks and long-term approaches like this. And that's how we kept going. It's not about confidence. It's not at all about confidence. If it is about confidence, we would have lost long time back. Because until you make something work, every humble person, every person who has self-awareness about who they are, will know that they shouldn't be confident until you make it. You may see a lot of fake confidence out there from entrepreneurs. A lot of people fake it till they make it. But the real confidence doesn't come until you actually make it. So it's not about a game of confidence. It's about probability. So maximize your chances. Next question. As someone who built a global tech company from Sri Lanka, what specific mindset or principle helped you scale Rootcode internationally, despite being based in a relatively small tech ecosystem? You answered it because it's the nature of being in a small ecosystem that made me start looking outside. If I was born in a bigger ecosystem, maybe I would be too busy serving that market. For the kind of products that we build, for the kind of complex AI technology that we build, we are not necessarily the cheapest. We can't provide our services to our market. And it's too small. That's where we started looking outside. So export was our only way to survive and keep some of the best engineers and AI people in Sri Lanka. So next. What kind of challenges have you gone through while turning the small team into a global enterprise? And was there a negative impact while improving? There were a lot of challenges. I used to think, when we were 5 people, I thought maybe we become 10 people, life gets easier. And then at some point I thought maybe you're 50, it will become easier. And then I thought maybe you become 100, you become easier, but I can guarantee you life doesn't get easy as an entrepreneur. But you go from one kind of challenge to another kind of challenge. So starting to enjoy having those challenges and kind of building a mindset where you don't care about what kind of thing that gets thrown at you, but you will fight it and you will have an amazing team that will stand by you to fight that battle is probably the biggest learning for me. Next question. I have 3 minutes and 45 seconds. I have 35 questions. I don't think I'll be able to take everything, but I'll do my best. My team is building a new product for the city of Oslo. Beautiful. I'm very happy to hear that. What's your piece of advice for us? Localize it. Start using all the systems that are used in the city of Oslo, because Oslo has a beautiful way of consistency in the way they build software, and most of the Nordic cities do. So start learning their existing systems like a textbook, and build your platform in a way that looks so similar and consistent with their user experience. In advanced nations like Norway and in the Nordics, technology is extremely advanced, and governments spend a hell lot of time thinking and figuring out how do we serve our citizens better. So you are entering a market that's extremely mature, so prepare for that. So my one piece of advice is, if I were you, I would spend day and night testing and using and going through their complete end-to-end systems that they use in Oslo, and save as much money as I can and figure out how to get that damn visa and show up in Oslo and sit with the citizens, because that's the only way for you to learn about people in that city. How to balance a business while you are working on another company as an employee? Should I need a hand? A lot of entrepreneurs would tell you you need to give it all in. If you want to start a company, you need to go full time. You need to do that. I would do the same in companies that I invest in, but statistics proves otherwise. There's a beautiful Harvard Business Review research on this that talks in a broader number of entrepreneurs who have tried to make it. It's the entrepreneurs who have kept their job and worked it as a side hustle until it made enough money to go full time are the ones who make it more often. Statistics, not motivational speech. And I guess there are a few reasons why that works. Because as an entrepreneur, as a businessman or a businesswoman, one of the fundamental things that will help you make big, like not medium big, like real big, is your ability to understand risk. I started Rootcode because I was delusional. I thought anybody can build a company. I thought with no background, no money, no investors, I can take a chance on building a company. But I don't have the same delusion right now. In the last 10, 11 years, I've gotten tuned into somebody who is a lot more risk-averse, careful investor. And that learning about risk and handling risk is one of the biggest things that you will learn. So that's my piece of advice. So keep your job until it makes enough revenue and traction for you to scale it up. You have a lot more time than you think in your day. You can get a lot of things done. How did you secure seed funding? No, nobody was willing to fund us. To date, we don't have investors. To date, the company is fully owned by us. We don't have any investors, and we are proud to say that. Fundamental reason was I always felt responsible for other people's money. If I am going to take somebody's money, I should know very well that I'm going to return it with multiple X. And then I didn't have the confidence, so I wanted to risk whatever we can. So we made every dollar, reinvested every dollar. I still today drive a Toyota, even though Rootcode is a multi-million-dollar company, and that's the fundamental philosophy that drives us. So to answer you, we did not have seed funding, and we do not have any funding until now. We're being a profitable, proud Sri Lankan-owned company, even though we are a global company. Thank you so much. Time is up, guys. Wonderful questions. Talk to me outside if you want to ask anything more. Thank you.